Welcome back to the Game Collection. I am SuperDerek, and this is Grandia. Grandia is an action-packed, turn-based RPG with a twist. It's got an addicting battle system and lovable characters, neither of which will you soon be able to forget. In Grandia, you play as Justin, an aspiring young adventurer living in a fantasy world in the midst of a steam revolution. Along with your childhood friend, you set off on a journey to discover the mysteries of an ancient civilization that once harnessed the power of the world. Along the way, your mischief gets you into a lot of trouble, and you make several new friends who help you along the way. Gradually, this epic adventure to the end of the world takes on an even greater purpose as you struggle to save the world from an impending doom. Because Grandia was developed by Game Arts, a lot of the same people who worked on the Lunar series also had a role in Grandia's production. It was originally released in Japan for the Sega Saturn in December of 1997. Despite being released exclusively in Japan, this game was turning heads even in the United States. In June of '99, Grandia was brought over to the Sony PlayStation and finally brought to the United States in September, just a few short weeks after the launch of the Sega Dreamcast, while PAL regions received the game in March of 2000. Despite not having the involvement of Studio Alex in the production of Grandia, this game still manages to feel oddly reminiscent of Lunar in tone, despite looking and playing completely differently. Game Arts really has a knack for creating interesting and lovable characters. Personally, I would have loved to see Grandia been localized by Working Designs, but Sony really managed to do a pretty passable job, though I think some of the voices could have been worked on a little bit more.
What are you saying, Lean? I should be the one saying that.
Okay, well maybe a lot more in some cases. The overall story of Grandia is large and expansive that explores the concepts of whether the ends justify the means, and what it means to be an adventurer. Where Grandia stands out the most compared to other RPGs of the time is in its battle system. What initially seemed to be foreign and confusing to me turned out to be a welcome take on and an improvement on the concept of an active time battle system. Turn order is determined by the progress bar at the bottom, where monsters and characters race towards the right. Hitting an enemy halts their progress to their next turn, and even more powerful attacks may cause enemies to lose their ground, or even lose their turn if you interrupt their attack. That alone is extremely fun, but the way that magic points are handled in tiers and separate from skill points is really neat too. There's too much really to cover in just a review of Grandia, but suffice it to say that once you get your mind wrapped around the battle system, you'll be hooked. However, I do have a small gripe about magic skill progression. Magic elemental levels increase depending on usage, which seems pretty cool on the surface, but in order to get the best skills in magic, you'll have to grind a lot by going out of your way to attack using magic almost exclusively in order to level up those elements, even when just attacking with melee is faster and more effective. Also, since certain healing spells are pretty much required to survive in the game, you may find yourself doing some very odd training at points. When you feel compelled to walk through puddles of acid or into traps just to practice healing yourself, you know that there's going to be some room for improvement. The music in Grandia is just fantastic, and for that we can thank the triumphant return of Noriyuki Iwadare from the Lunar series, who seems to still know exactly what notes to play in exactly what order to tug at my heartstrings at just the right moments. Even just a few hours into the game, as Justin is about to embark on his great journey, this music kicks in and I choke up. It's beautiful. And Grandia looks beautiful too. Well, sometimes. It's a little inconsistent in the graphics department, I think. Some areas are really interesting and detailed, while others come off a bit garish. Environments are made of textured polygons, while characters are 2D sprites, not unlike PlayStation-era Breath of Fire and Persona titles. It was definitely a good choice to go this route with Grandia, because there are already minor frame rate issues in some areas, and adding character models on top of that would probably have made things a lot worse. Not only that, but I think that the 2D sprites captured a lot more of the characters' personalities and style, more than a low polygon model could ever do. Less than a year after Grandia was released in the United States, a sequel was released in Japan for the Sega Dreamcast, and continued to receive several more entries in the series. In 2010, Grandia was released digitally on the PlayStation Network for about $6, while complete copies of Grandia for PlayStation are currently selling for around $40. Grandia was a lot of fun to play. It's a long but mostly light-hearted story that never really comes across as being overly difficult. Possessing excellent characters and a very addicting battle system, Grandia has easily found itself a spot in the game collection.